got to unmute yourself there. Okay, there you go.
Oh, thank you for these amazing stories. And I myself come from a performing arts background, and that moved out from that world also. My question is, I have many questions, but one of them that came up was, was there a point, has there been a point at which you transitioned from not knowing what you were doing in the world to knowing why you were here and what you were doing? Or is that continue to be in transition? And can you say anything about those further points of knowingness or not knowingness?
Hmm. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. No, the magazine has become, I feel like I found a vocation. I feel so fortunate, and as perhaps you feel. I mean, I think anyone in this culture who finds what we can call a vocation in the sense of a calling has to feel grateful and fortunate because, as you know, most folks don't find that. They have to pay the rent, but they don't love what they're doing. And I feel quite fortunate in having found something that I love. I love doing it. And my life has had a lot of different things in it, and one of them has given me a little bit of income, so I don't have to make money doing the magazine. I can give myself over to this thing that I love and not worry about the money. I've been doing this for 27 years, and I have foundation support if I need it. So I don't pay myself for my time, and but I don't have to worry about covering my costs. So yes, I feel extremely lucky because I do feel like I have found something, very very much so. Thank you.
Diane, it sounded like you had another question. You got one more you want to ask?
Sure. This last piece that you shared about your meeting with Nipun, which I saw was the article was 2007. So so how did that change your business model? And yeah, how did you work together, and what was different about how you put the work out? I mean, just simply offering the magazine for free, and how did Nipun serve you?
Well, yeah, and it really didn't change my. I didn't have a business model, so that's easy. So that's easy. Nipun said when we met the next day, he said, "Well, look, you do the magazine the way you've been doing it, and I wouldn't have agreed to anything else anyway." But he says, "I'll tell you what, I know how to do websites. I'll build you a new website. How would you feel about having the website be a venue for deep conversations worldwide?" I said, "Yeah, I would be very good with that." And I said, "Listen, Nipun, there's one thing that concerns me, and that is this, I'm concerned about the quality of the content. I do not want a sort of low quality, superficial stuff appearing on the website." And Nipun said, "I agree with that. We'll curate it. We'll just have good, deep content, and I'll sort of take over the website. You keep doing the magazine." And that's how it's worked. Um, Thanks to being part of Service Space, I've been exposed and I continue to meet all kinds of incredible people, as I'm sure all of you already know. Whatever connection you have with Nipun, you know already it's an enriching kind of connection. And so it hasn't changed anything in terms of the sort of spirit of what I'm doing, but it has opened so many doors for me in terms of meeting incredible people. I meet them anyway. A lot of them sort of escape the notice of most people, and some of them are famous and everywhere in between. But it's been a tremendously enriching kind of experience. It's been a huge help in my life to just sort of further the kind of thing that I was doing in the first place. And although I sort of have described as an art magazine, quote unquote, I've never limited myself. I have a background in philosophy, so I'm also, an editor of Parabola magazine. So I'm interested in all kinds of people, but the main thing is, do people have a story that's sort of inspiring and uplifting? That to me is the most interesting thing, and it hasn't cost me anything. This connection with Nippon, it's only enriched it.
Great. Thank you. And I noticed that Usman has joined us from Nigeria. Usman, welcome. And I see, Wendy, looks like you've got a question you'd like to ask Richard.
I think,
Oh, you just muted yourself. You need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
yeah, I saw Len have his hand up first, so I defer to Len. I'll go after Len.
Okay, Len defers to you, and then you can defer to Len. Okay.
I actually had two questions. I noticed, Richard, you were talking about truth, and that's the importance of getting to the truth and truth in art. And I'm just wondering about the beauty. How do you combine truth and beauty? Because sometimes what's truth is not very beautiful, it's harsh, and you can see that in certain art pieces. So that was one question I had about the truth that you're finding in art, and where do you find the beauty at the same time. And the other question I had is, I read one of your articles, you did an interview with Kate Munger, and now that I've also joined the Threshold Choir, and I'm wondering what drew you to her. So those are my two questions.
Well, I mean, these are such huge terms, and yeah, I mean, this is a thing we should have an all-day symposium to just, to sort of say something about. Beauty, yeah, that's very tough because, I mean, beauty and truth, good heavens. Yeah, truth is often brutal and terrifying. And beauty is often used for bad ends, like propaganda, advertising. I mean, you try to sell products by making things beautiful, appealing to people's aesthetic sensibilities and so forth. All these things are big, huge topics with all kinds of facets. The thing that interests me about what we could say is beauty and in the Platonic sense of truth, goodness, and beauty as the three aspects of the divine is a very deep idea of beauty. It's not a conventional idea of beauty as just pretty. It's the idea of something on another level, and it could be, maybe a word might be numinous. Perhaps we could say the numinous. So the numinous is not a political issue per se. The numinous is a spiritual question. And in terms of issues of justice and power, art also tackles that stuff. I mean, art just covers pretty much almost anything you can think of. And we could talk about all of it, but we only have a few minutes here. And so, you mentioned Kate Munger, an artist named Jane Baker, who's interviewed on the website. Jane Baker, she was the chief financial officer for some big corporation, and she's also an artist. And Jane has a great story. Jane introduced me to Kate Munger. Jane is part of the Threshold Choir, and once I heard a little bit about the Threshold Choir, I wanted to interview Kate. And now you've met her. You're part of that, right, Wendy?
Yes.
I mean, she's incredible what she's doing. So I encourage everybody to read the interview with Kate Munger, Threshold Choir, and with Jane Baker. All of these things are great stories, and to tell them with any kind of adequacy would take quite a while. But if you want to get me to say something more specific, Wendy, just say what that might be.
I guess what drew you to her?
Well, it was what Jane Baker told me about her and about what she was doing, this singing at the bedside of people who are dying. I mean, wow. I mean, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, the amazing spiritual practice, but also done within beauty.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can't hear you, Arya. You look like your mouth is. I don't hear you. I don't know why.
Of course, I just unmuted myself, Richard.
There we go. There we go.
Even I am not perfectly in command of the technology. Okay, Len, your turn.
Yes, Richard, thank you for all of this. You talk about this thing I love, and your story started out in the Haight-Ashbury interviewing people. And I wonder, what is this thing you love in a few sentences? Is it giving something away? Is it the art that touches you? Is it seeking stories and then sharing stories that matter? How would you describe this thing I love?
Wow, that's that's a great question. That really gets to the heart of it. That's a challenging question, Len. Ultimately, I think it's about a quality of experience. And, you know, the way we think in the materialist West is that there's just one horizontal world and that our ordinary mind can figure out the deep truth via science, via math, empirical sort of verification that it's all there and it's all available to our ordinary mind. And I know everybody on this call knows there's a different kind of way of looking at all this, and we're using the word spiritual. And essentially, I think you could say that the idea of spirituality is that there's a vertical kind of axis in terms of truth and knowledge and meaning and experience. It's not just a horizontal world that is available for our exploration via our ordinary mind through math, blah, blah, blah. So what is that thing I love? It's the thing everybody loves. If they only touch it for a moment, it's that experience of another level, what we could call a higher level, an experience that all the spiritual traditions are trying to show us the way toward. And the thing about art, and art is not a religion, but I think art is a word that we give to the action of creativity that takes place in anybody, in all of us, in which our state is changed. And I think everybody has had experiences of having my state changed, and changed in a way that makes life more real, more vivid. I feel more alive. So there's a quality of experience that when it's touched, it is, in a way, it's meaning itself. I mean, to have a certain quality of experience, you could say, is synonymous with having a sense of meaning. So it's something like that, I would say, Len. I mean, it's a big question, but I would say that somewhere in that territory. Does that make sense to you?
Is it the art, or is it in the seeking of people's stories of it? Is it something you experience, or is your peak experience in passing on other people's stories?
Well, I think that what it is
Like,
as I said,
where's the ecstasy for you at its best?
It's hard to pin that down. It's hard to pin it down. I mean, it's not. It can happen almost at any moment, but it's in the living. It's in the moment of living. So that happens when I interview an artist. Sometimes it's a joy to it's a joy to have a conversation with a person in which we both are able to move towards being able to share these deeper experiences that we each have. In ordinary life, in ordinary conversation, we don't get to these exchanges with each other in which we can share these very deep experiences. So it would be hard for me to pin this down as to where is it. Where is it for you when suddenly you feel alive and happy, let's say? Where is that? When does that happen? You know what I'm saying?